Hi, in John Urquhart's The Wonders of Prophecy, he's talking about the corruptions of Egypt during the age when it was dominated by the Turks and the corruptions of the local officials, top to bottom, in the administration of Egypt during the Victorian era. This corruption taints the entire official body. The mudirs and mamours are removed with every change of ministry, and hence they only try, says Mr. Villiers Stuart, to make the most of their opportunity and to enrich themselves as fast as they can during their precarious term of office. I have known Egypt for many years, and I fear I must come to the conclusion that venality and corruption are so universal, so ingrained in the social fabric, from the highest to the lowest, that he, that is Villiers Stuart, believes the only hope of Egypt lies in having an entirely new set of officials, and Englishmen, if possible. Nor is this all. Egyptian prisons are bastilles in which men in power immure arbitrarily those who have offended them, or whom they have any motive in getting out of the way. They are sent there without trial or enquiry under letters de cachet, and there they may remain for years, forgotten perhaps by the tyrant who sent them thither, and without means or opportunity of bringing their case to the notice of those who might obtain tardy justice and release for them. The masters of Egypt have been increased within our own times. This is written around 1900. We know what the bondholders are, and whether the terms of which the loans were advanced or the demands with which they are today insisted upon deserve the epithet which the Scripture has applied to the other lords of this unhappy people. That is, that the land has been delivered into the hands of the wicked. But the land has been of late years covered with a flood of usurers, and between them and the bondholders the very heart's blood of the people is being wrung out. The debt of the fellahs is estimated to amount to 2/3 of the national debt, and upon this vast sum interest, varying from 3 to 5, 8, and even 10% per month, is either paid or is accumulating and increasing the indebtedness at an alarming rate. The fellahs, unable to meet their debts, are being deprived of their land. A rapid process of transfer is taking place of the property, the land of the native Egyptians, and that is to Greeks and Syrians and other Christian usurers. These usurers are as unscrupulous as the rest into whose hands this people have been sold, and we as a nation, that is Britain, have unfortunately and unwittingly played into the usurers' hands. It was the custom of Egypt that no land could be seized for debt, and this was one excuse for the exorbitant interest, sometimes amounting to 130% per annum. But we have been accessory to the change which removed this last barrier, which stood between the fellahs and spoliation. We have converted these ill-secured debts into first-class land mortgages. Araby drove out these pauperizers of the people, but we have brought them back by force of arms. Mr. Stuart thus describes the palaces of these Egyptian Shylocks. Just outside many of the Delta villages may be observed a superior house built in European style, the walls stained cream color or pale blue or rose pink with bright green Venetian blinds, a great improvement on the raw mud brick structures which form the staple of native dwellings. These edifices will always be found, on inquiry, to belong to the local moneylender, Greek, Syrian, Armenian, or Jewish. He's sure to plant himself wherever the soil is extra fertile and the neighborhood extra advantageous. He visited one, that is Villiers Stuart visited one, and found it fitted up with European furniture and French mirrors. Everything around betokened prosperity and abundance. There could scarcely be a more striking contrast than the condition presented by the neighboring village. The villagers informed him that all the usurers' lands had belonged to them. He adds, it had now come to this, and while the foreign usurer had become a wealthy landed proprietor, not one of the natives had more than a dozen acres left. I took a sad and sympathetic leave of the poor fellows. Decidedly, that was not a flourishing community. That Christian establishment, close by, was sucking out their very lifeblood, like a tumor or a wen, which draws to itself the juices of the whole body until all is exhausted. The time could not be far off when every peasant proprietor there will be reduced to the position of a laborer on the Greeks' all-devouring estate. The process of adding house to house and field to field has been brought into vigorous life in Egypt of late years by the operation of the international tribunals. No feature of the social condition of the Delta forced itself more prominently on my notice throughout my tour of enquiry in its provinces than this question of the indebtedness of the fellahs in connection with the new tribunals. And I may as well take this opportunity of summing up the conclusions it forced upon me. Still, Villiers Stuart talking here. All the witnesses agreed that the usurers, that is, the Greeks, Syrians, and Jewish, have been the main cause of the hatred with which the Christians were regarded during the rebellion of Arabi, that they have dealt most mercilessly with the fellahs, entangling them in a hopeless net of indebtedness and using their power to possess themselves of their lands. They have woven round them a tangled network of debt which no Colenso could unravel. The moderate sum originally advanced, compound interest at exorbitant rates, sums advanced successively since, with their interests, the reckoning further complicated by sums paid on account, no receipts being given. The fellahs have long ago abandoned in despair the task of comprehending their financial position with its hopeless intricacies, and only feel that they have nothing which they can call their own. Urquhart says, everywhere there is the same unscrupulous rapacity, the same disregard of right and justice, which show how marvelous are these words, again from Ezekiel 30, verse 12. I will sell the land into the hands of the wicked. Take them simply as a description, and there are, let me read that again. And are there any other words that can so clearly mirror the condition of this unhappy land, and that will state it with such brevity yet fullness, with such deep insight and pathos? As a description it is marvelous, but what shall we say of it as a prophecy? Next time he's dealing with, but not only is the character of the master of Egypt foretold, their nationality is also foretold. I will make the land waste and all that is in it by the hand of strangers. Also Ezekiel 30, verse 12, by the way. Put in a link to what Jacques Ellul had to say about power. Power not just exercised in violence, but power exercised primarily by economic means. See you next time.